Welcome to our video, Hell is Paved with Good Intentions. My name is Ramos James, and I am a personal injury attorney in Austin. A little bit about me: I have practiced only doing personal injury for almost 10 years. I have practiced in both sides of the docket, defense and plaintiff side, and I own a law firm called Ramos James Law. I am originally from Mexico, went to college at St. Mary's in San Antonio, and then law school at Baylor. So I wanted to talk to you all about a pretty troubling situation that happened last week when we had a potential new case contact our office. And this woman had been in a car accident close to 2 years ago. So as you know, the statute of limitations is a concern. And she wanted to get some help, because in trying to resolve her matter with the auto insurance for the person that hit her, the auto insurance was barely going to cover her past medical bills. So she was concerned that she was still having pain to her neck that had not resolved yet. She was having basically tingling down her arm, so pretty concerning symptoms. And of course, they were not offering to pay for other damages that Texas law allows compensation for, such as things you learned in law school, I'm sure, physical impairment, physical disfigurement, of course, mental anguish, and things of that nature. So she contacted our office, and I asked her, why now? Why didn't you call us 2 years ago? And what she told me is really the reason for putting this video together. She said that she has a friend who's a lawyer, and the lawyer told her, why doesn't she try to resolve it on her own with the insurance company? That she should send a letter, that it's fairly straightforward. And here we are now. The poor woman won't find a lawyer that will take her case so close to the statute of limitations. For those of you that don't practice in this area, you ideally want to be doing investigation well ahead of the 2-year deadline. You don't want to be caught a month before the statute expires and you can't find the defendant, and witnesses are missing as well, and you don't have the proper entity to sue. So all of that takes time. So anyway, long story short, I have been guilty of trying to tell a friend to that got a ticket to perhaps contact the court or things like that. But I really want to emphasize that if you all don't practice personal injury, please, 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 if you have a family member or a client or a neighbor that was involved in an accident and they were hurt, have them at the very least consult with a personal injury lawyer. Most of us offer free consultations, and as you know, we do work on a contingency basis. So unless we're able to recover, the client's not going to pay us out of pocket. Actually, the client's never going to pay us out of pocket, but we only get paid unless we're able to recover. So just have them consult with a personal injury lawyer. I wanted to explain what the typical arguments or the typical pitfalls are for a person that finds themselves in the situation that this woman was finding herself in, and just give you a little bit of overview of both arguments that are made, and why a person is finding herself in this situation 2 years after her wreck and wasn't able to just send a letter and resolve it on her own. I don't have to explain to you that insurance companies are industry. It's an industry that makes their money by taking premiums and trying to find a way to not pay claims or to pay as little as possible. That's just common sense, simple math, simple concepts. Now, when a person is involved in an accident, many times their car is not going, and I'm talking about a car accident right now, many times their car is not going to show a lot of damage. So as a defense attorney, I'm gonna try to, or as an adjuster in this case, if the case has not made it into litigation, the adjuster in the defense side is going to say, scratch in the bumper. There's no way this person was hurt. And if you put your client or your loved one that was involved in an accident in touch with a personal injury lawyer, I can tell you that most of us we spend a lot of time developing relationships in the community, meeting professionals and meeting experts, and we are able to connect our clients with body shops that are going to tear the car apart and figure out if there is structural damage. That is just one thing that, to go back to my case that I was discussing, that's just one thing that was not done. So 2 years later, this woman's car is repaired for the scratch in the bumper, and now we don't know if the reason why she's having these symptoms is because or still having these symptoms is because the damage to the car was actually much more significant than initially the adjuster evaluated or the person thought. Now, another argument that is very common in my field is the gap in care. Gap in care generally refers to when a person is receiving medical treatment and then they stop for, can be a week, can be 3 months, and then they resume medical care. So as a defense attorney or as an adjuster, I'm going to say the person is now, their injuries have resolved. They stopped treatment. So if they're going back to the doctor, they maybe they re-injured themselves at home or at work, but they were doing fine. They were doing perfectly fine. And from the perspective of the client, life happens. Sometimes you don't have a car to get to the doctor. Sometimes you're trying to figure out who the right specialist is for the symptoms that you're having. And you have kids and you have a husband and you have to make dinner and you have to work late at the office. I mean, life happens. And next thing you know, 3 months have gone by. And as a plaintiff's lawyer, part of our job is to have case managers that are going to be assessing the situation as you go with the client. So touching base and seeing, what are you still having pain and discomfort? What areas of your body are hurting? And the purpose of that is that, again, we a lot of personal injury attorneys, at least in Austin, in my community, we spend time developing relationships with specialists so that the second we know of certain symptoms, if the client doesn't know where to go, we can tell them, that's generally the specialty of a pain management doctor. So that's something I had never heard of before I started practicing. So a lot of people, I think, can find themselves in that situation, and we can connect them with a pain management physician if they need to, or we can tell them at least what the specialty is that they may want to explore. So that we avoid that argument and we kind of get ahead of, trying to be proactive in making a good case for the person that's hurt. And the other, and these arguments that I'm giving you and these pitfalls are definitely not an exhaustive list. There's many more, and we probably are going to have to do another video because I'd really like my colleagues to know and understand why it is so important that you put your clients or loved ones in touch with somebody that does what I do as soon as possible. So another example is this: physical disfigurement. As a defense attorney, I can't tell you the number of times that I took a deposition of a person that was telling me that they had an injury and they had this scar that every time they looked at the scar, it reminded them of the accident and how traumatizing it was. And then I had no pictures, and so I evaluated the claim as having a lower value, because I knew that if we go in front of a jury, there's not going to be a picture that shows this supposed scar this person is talking about. 3 years later, the scar's gone. As a personal injury attorney, it is my job and my duty to help my client gather all the items that are gonna be the evidence in support of their claim. Do they have a scar? Okay, then we need to photograph it, and we need to keep track of different things that we can use in support of their claim for physical disfigurement. And you know, that's just something that it's not common sense for the person. Obviously, the last thing anyone is thinking about when they get hurt is suing someone else. That is seriously, all of my clients are focused on, they don't have a car to get to work, they need to pay bills. I mean, that's their concern. They're not thinking 3 years later, I'm going to be sitting in a conference room surrounded by lawyers, cameras, court reporters, and I'm going to have to explain why this has been such a burden and you know, such a tough time for me. So now the other pitfall is you're 2 years later after the accident. I think I mentioned before, finding the proper defendant is not always easy. In fact, it's hardly ever easy. People move, witnesses move, you have to hire investigators, people dodge service, you know, they're at home and they don't want to answer the door. So all of that takes time. And again, if you're able to locate these important characters soon after the accident, the case is much better for the person that's trying to just seek fair compensation for their injuries. Now, I guess the other thing I wanted to mention, again, statute of limitations. There's a purpose for it to be 2 years. My personal practice in my law firm is if we are getting close to 6 months before the statute expires, we already are, all over. Like, if we know we're going to file a lawsuit, we're all over this, investigating and doing a lot of work that needs to be done in order to have a strong lawsuit and strong outcome for the client, or favorable outcome. And I will say recently, for again those of you that don't practice personal injury, the law has changed to where we are now, as plaintiffs' lawyers, required to have, and this is just one, the statute changed. It's much more nuanced than what I'm going to explain, but one of the things we're required to do now is, for the most part, we file a lawsuit and a defendant answers the lawsuit, and we need to have records in admissible form within 90 days after the lawsuit has been answered. Now, why is that a problem, or what was the issue with this? I don't know if you've ever dealt with medical providers, but their priority is to give medical care. Their priority is not to prepare admissible records for lawyers. So, especially with hospitals, they have thousands of patients every day, and having to locate and then having to prepare documents to have an admissible form. For the lawyer, there's a lot of back and forth. So we like to file a lawsuit and already have these records in admissible form before we file, so that we don't find ourselves scrambling at the last minute. So that's another reason why it's so hard for this woman to find a lawyer, a personal injury lawyer, to help her out to get the compensation she needs. Of course, I didn't mention all the other elements or items of compensation that she's entitled to, like lost wages, out of pocket. I mean, I'm gonna leave you with a note. I know that whoever the attorney was that was trying to help out this woman 2 years ago and told her that she should just try to resolve it on her own and send a letter to the insurance company. Don't be that attorney. I am here for you if you want to have your client call me, and I can tell them pretty quickly if I can help or not. And I can tell them if it's something that if I were them, I would do on my own. And generally that involves, very, very minor injuries or property damage, like very minimal. But anything other than that, I would strongly suggest that you help out your loved ones and you don't put them between a rock and a hard place. So thank you for listening. I will see you perhaps in another video. And if you need me, you know where to find me. Thanks.